Hey, what's going on, Scatterbrains? Thank you for coming back to another episode of Scatterbrains. See, my name is Travis, and today I'm going to be doing an updated Q&A type video to answer some questions that weren't answered in the first video I did about self-publishing. In, I guess, 2017, I posted a video, which I put down in the description in case you haven't seen it, about what it took for me to publish my first children's book, The Colorful Kids, which is this book right here. And in that video, I talked about Ingram Spark and I talked about Create Space, which were the two companies that I was looking at the time to publish my first book. And I kind of talked about what I did, the process I used, the apps and software and tools and all of that kind of stuff. And the video's been seen, a decent amount of times, but I've gotten a lot of emails from people asking me things that I guess I didn't answer in the video or it wasn't clear. So this is just going to be an updated video because since the first book, I've done my second book. I published my second book, which is entitled Always Just Be You, in August of 2019. And currently, I just finished illustrating a book for someone else, and I'm working on my next 3 books. So, I'm really into books right now. So currently, I have a book that I'm working on that I'm trying to get done by August, and then I have a dual type book that's going to probably come out in February. But I just composed a list of the top 10 questions that I feel like everybody asks or has sent me an email or put down in the comments of that last video to try to help you on your journey. So as far as the second book that I published, my process was almost pretty much the exact same as the first one, but I did do a couple of things differently. And I went through Ingram Spark only. I only did a hardback book. I didn't do anything other than that. And the process that I went through last time, just very quickly, just to keep you in mind, I used Procreate, which was the drawing app I used for the first book. I used it on my iPad Pro, which was a 12.9 screen, and I used the Apple Pencil to draw my pictures. The biggest difference between when I did The Colorful Kids and doing the second book is I didn't have to export my pictures into Photoshop to put the words in. Since I've done this first book, Procreate, the app has updated itself, so now you can do text within the app. So I literally did the entire book in Procreate. I still use Calligrapher to create a font that looked like my handwriting. So outside of that, I did everything in Procreate. And the tip that I can give everybody before I get into the questions for those who are using Procreate is when you are about to start, if you're illustrating your own book, that is, when you're about to start illustrating your book, instead of creating canvas size that are the size of a single page, create a canvas that's the size of your spread. It limits the amount of files that you have to work with. It makes things go a whole lot quicker. So instead of having 24 individual files, you can just have 12. And even if it's like the left side is different than the right, or however you're illustrating it, it just makes it a whole lot easier. All right, so let's get to these questions. So the one question that everybody asked that I guess I didn't really say for sure is, how much did it cost all in? How much did I have to pay to publish this book? And out of pocket, the only 2 things I had to pay for was the ISBN number, which you can purchase through Ingram Spark for $85, and I paid for the title setup fee through Ingram Spark, which is $49. That's it. I didn't pay for anything else to get this book published. So I'm not great with math. Let me pull up my calculator and make sure I don't do it wrong. 85 plus 49 is $134. That is the only money that I spent to get that book published because I did it all myself. I wrote the book myself. I illustrated the book myself. I edited the book myself. I formatted the book myself. I literally did a DIY and only had to spend $134 to get the book done. Now this is also because number one, I already had an iPad. I already had the Apple Pencil. I already had Procreate. So if you don't have those things, that would obviously be an additional charge, but you don't have to do your book in Procreate. You can just hand draw your book. I find drawing on the iPad a lot easier because of mistakes and layers, and I can work on something, come back to it, or start all over. But you don't have to draw yours digitally. You can just do it on pen and paper, and that's free. And get it scanned, which you can probably get it scanned for free as well. And as far as like Photoshop and InDesign, those were free trials that I used. You can use a free trial for them for 7 days, but you don't really need Photoshop anymore. Now, the thing that I didn't mention that I had to go back and add in an extra little bit about in that first video was the InDesign program. So InDesign is an Adobe software, and that is the program that I use to put everything together. So I created the individual pages in Procreate, but you have to have some kind of software to put all those pages together and export them into a PDF file. So I'm only gonna, from here on out, talk about Ingram Spark because I have no experience with anybody else. Per Ingram Spark's guidelines for how you have to upload your files, it has to be a PDF document. And you can do that through Word. I'm not familiar with that. InDesign was just so easy. InDesign is a matter of when you open up the program, like I said, you can get a 7-day free trial. It only takes you a day to put it takes you like 30, 45 minutes to put the book together. But when you open up the document, you list how many pages are in your document, the size of your document, and your margins. I always did 0.5 margin. Margin really doesn't matter that much. Just make sure you don't have anything too close to the edge that might bleed off the page. But you do that, and then you just import your pictures and you just drop them in place. It creates your book, like the first page, the next 2 pages, next 2 pages, next 2 pages, last page. And you just drop each of your pictures into where they're supposed to go, and then you export it as a PDF 2001 or something like that. And that's it. It is a very easy thing to do. And then something else I learned, you can also, when you finish putting your book together in InDesign, after you export it as a PDF, you can export it as an EPUB file, either reflowable or fixable, I think is the name. And then that is the file that you'll use to upload for an ebook. You can get both done like that. I didn't know that at the time of doing these 2 books. I didn't learn that until I did the book just now that I illustrated, because not only did I illustrate for that client, I also did the editing as well. And people ask me, I didn't write this in my question, people ask me, do you illustrate? Yes, I illustrate. You just have to email me and I can email you my price sheet. So to answer the first question that I started off with, $134 is all it took for me to get the book created, published, and done. Now, speaking of illustrators, one of the things that people ask me about is like finding an illustrator. How long does it take? As far as finding an illustrator, I don't necessarily have a Rolodex of illustrators. The only illustrator that I know personally is myself. But some people don't like my prices. But the thing that you have to keep in mind when you're looking for an illustrator for your book as an independent author is you don't have a publishing house behind you who's going to front the bill of an illustrator. Some people don't really understand how much time it takes to do art, just in general. Not about illustrations per se, but just art in general. Takes time, and time is money. If you haven't realized the value of your time, it's very valuable, okay? So for me, I have to price my time at where it's worth, and I don't have time to negotiate because my prices are set as they are, because once our business is done, you're done with me. When you go through a publishing house and you get your book published by some big company, you have royalties, meaning that for every book you sell, such and such percentage is going to you, such and such percentage is going to the publisher, such and such percentage is going to the illustrator, and whoever else may be. I don't do that. I charge all my prices up front so that when we're done, and you get to keep all your money. You're paying for my costs all up front so that from here, forever, you never have to pay me again. So it is a lot of money up front, but you're going to save more in the long run. And then that keeps me in a secure place because I don't have to worry about somebody not following through with their contract and not paying me royalties, because I don't want to get into all that legal stuff. Just pay me my money up front and we can go on about our separate ways. So as far as how long it takes, it depends on your book. Different books can take a different amount of times, and the type of illustrations make a difference. The number of pages, how detailed, how much input you want. For me, I prefer to have pretty much like artistic freedom when it comes to my book, the books that I illustrate, because I don't want to try to fit myself into somebody else's style. Like if you know a person's style, whose illustrations you like, that's the person you need to be reaching out to. Like don't reach out to me asking me if I can illustrate like somebody else. I'm not going to do that. I illustrate like myself, and if you don't like my style, that is perfectly fine. The one place that I do direct a lot of people who email me about illustrators is Fiverr or however you say it, Fiverr. I direct them there. You can find cheap prices for illustrations if that's the route that you would like to take. But now keep in mind, as always, you get what you pay for. That's just something to keep in mind. But if that's what works for you and your pockets, cool. But one thing you need to know when you start reaching out to illustrators is you need to have a budget. You need to have a budget and know how much it is that you're willing to spend on your illustrations, because you got to keep in mind, I'm not going to say that illustrations are more important than the words in the book, but they're more important than the words in the book, because the words are just the words. The illustration is what's going to tie everything all together. But that's just my opinion. I mean, some books can go without an illustrations, and that's why you have chapter books. But if you have a children's book, illustrations are going to be the thing that is going to pull the child in the most, especially for children who can't read. So as far as investing your money, that's where the biggest investment is probably going to go towards. All right, let me see what else. All right, so I talked about ebook. So yeah, I've just not converted. I'm converting in the process of letting Ingram Spark do it for me. If you upload a print book to Ingram Spark, they'll convert it to an ebook for like 20 cents a page. So right now they finished converting this one. They're still in the process of converting this one, and it costs like $20 to get that one converted to an ebook and $20 to get that one converted to an ebook because of the number of pages in it. But also, which I learned, and I don't know if it was like this when I originally started, is you can get a complimentary ISBN number when you convert it, meaning that you don't have to pay for the ISBN number for your electronic version of your book. And like I said in the last video, every format of your book needs its own ISBN number. If you have a paperback version, a hardback version, a Kindle version, all three versions need their own separate ISBN numbers, and the ISBN number is like the social security number for your book. Just keep that in mind. But I learned Ingram Spark will give you a free one as long as you leave it through Ingram Spark. So if I wanted to take my ebook down from Ingram Spark and go put it with somebody else, I would have to get a new ISBN number, but I don't plan on doing that. So I was fine allowing them to give me a free one. Successes and advertisement. Success is relative. If people ask me, have you been successful? Success is relative. Like what I feel might be successful might not be what you feel is successful. I had no expectations when it came to this first book or this book. For me, it's more so about getting the message across. Am I making money? Yes. Am I making a significant amount of money where I can quit my job? Not yet. Could it happen one day? Absolutely. But I did not do these to make money per se. I did it because it was something I wanted to try. I wanted to get a message out, and I wanted to just challenge myself, and I succeeded in that. So for me, I was successful. On top of, I get a check for it. How much money I get, I'm not going to disclose that because that's none of your business. Okay. Advertisement, I can say that for me, I'm not really good at marketing my own stuff. I'm good at getting it done and making it, but advertisement, not so much. So if you're an advertiser or someone who has marketing, a marketing specialty, skills, and all of that kind of stuff, shoot me an email so we can talk. Okay? So that's all I have to say about successes in advertisement. Somebody asked, was it worth it? It was absolutely worth it to be able to get the book done, to get it published, and to actually hold it in my hand, to see that my book now is on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, it's on Walmart. Both of my books are on Walmart. They're both on Target. You know, that's a major thing for me. Next question, where to begin? The first thing you need to do is just write the book. Write the story. I don't really think that there's a specific style or format you should do it in. I didn't have an official manuscript. I don't know how to write an official manuscript because I do it all myself. I don't have to worry about sending it to somebody. I just do it myself and make it happen. But there are plenty of videos where you can go and look up the correct way to write a manuscript, but I don't know that. But the first step to begin is just to write the story and then start figuring out your timeline as far as when you want it to come out, what your budget is, like I said, and what your vision is for your illustrations, because that's key as well. But giving artistic freedom to your illustrators is a good thing, but they still need to kind of have a guide on what your vision is for your book. Alright, I already spoke on the Procreate Updates, which is they added the text feature, so that's a great thing. And that text feature does a lot. You can also import fonts. So if you try to do like me and you want to create your own font through Calligrapher, what you would do is once Calligrapher sends you the link to download your font, it's going to download it as a TTF or OTF file. You would just import that into Procreate, and then your handwriting font will be within the app. It's amazing. And if you don't want to do your own font, you can go to websites like 1001 Fonts or dafont, DAFONT.com, and they have so many fonts. But just check your licensing, because those are fonts that people have created, and if you want to use those in any kind of business avenue, you have to pay a license to use those fonts. Like I said in the last video, that's why I just stuck with my own handwriting, because I didn't have to worry about paying extra to use a font. I'll just use my own handwriting. So that's the biggest, well, it's not the biggest update. That's one of the good updates that came with came with Procreate. The other good update that came, and this is something I learned the hard way, and the second thing that I was using Photoshop, was that when you go to get your book printed, there's two different types of colors. There's RGB and there's CMYK. So when you look at a device, a smartphone, tablet, computer screen, those colors are displayed in RGB, which is red, green, and blue. You know, if you've ever dropped like a drop of water on a phone and you see little tiny red, green, and blue dots, those colors mixed together create the colors on a device. But when you get something printed out of a printer, they use CMYK. So that's cyan, which is like a really light blue, magenta, yellow, and black. So the printers use those four colors to make all colors. RGB colors do not translate to CMYK colors the same. So for example, I can't show you right now, but like she has dots in her jacket. The way the dots looked on my screen are a lot brighter. They look neon on the screen, but here there's just like a kind of a muted green. So Procreate now has a way where when you're creating a new document, you can create it with CMYK colors. So instead of drawing your pictures out and getting them done and getting used to them looking a certain kind of way, then having to convert them over to CMYK and they look a lot duller, you can just do the whole illustration in CMYK so you can see exactly what your illustration is going to look like. So when you're creating a new document, it's somewhere in the settings that you just have to go in and select that you want CMYK instead of RGB. Because if you don't do that, then you will still need to use Photoshop to convert it. Text and color profile are the two things that have allowed me to not have to use Photoshop anymore when I'm doing my illustrations. So those are two big updates. Someone asked, do you need a business license? To my knowledge, no. No one has ever said anything to me about needing a business license, nor have I been contacted by anybody. It's been for almost 3 years, and you know, you're good. And then finally, editing in manuscripts. As I said, I don't know the proper style for a manuscript. I don't write them. I just write my stories out in a Word document. And then I copy and paste the Word document into Procreate and, you know, just put the words on whatever page and then just go from there. In editing, if you feel like your grammar is not the best, it will behoove you to talk to somebody whose grammar is a little bit better than yours to look through your book. Doing everything by myself, I can say I've had to go back several times through my book and correct minor mistakes just because it's just my eyes that kind of go through the book. And you know, you can think everything is good up until you get to the end and you see the last page and you realize you made a mistake. That means you got to go back and change it. So it's not going to hurt to have somebody to go and look at your book and just see if your words make sense, if your pictures look good. I mean, that's just not going to hurt. It'll only help you in the end. But you can absolutely edit it yourself and not have an issue with that. Now, those are the questions that I get the most. I really hope I'm not forgetting anything. But if you think of a question, you can still email me. You can leave it down in the comments and I'll respond. If you're interested in talking to me about illustrating, you can send me an email if you're interested in talking to me about editing or formatting your book for you, because I've actually done that for somebody else. You can email me that as well. I'm very well versed in Ingram Spark at this point, so if you have any questions about Ingram Spark, you can hit me up about that as well. And I think that's really all I have. So you have the Color Wheel Kids if you're interested in purchasing that. Thank you to all those who went and purchased it based off that last video. That's available, The Color Wheel Kids by Travis A. Thompson. And now you have Always Just Be You by Travis A. Thompson as well, written and illustrated. Thank you so much for watching. And am I forgetting anything? One thing I forgot to say, I figured I would end up remembering something. With this book, I had a different title for it. It was called Just Be You. Yeah, it was called Just Be You. I have learned that you always Google the name of something that you want to do. Whether it's the name for a business, name for an idea for a slogan, Google it first to see if it exists anywhere. Because the one thing you don't want is you don't want someone going to try to find your stuff and they're led to a whole bunch of other things. So when I went to Google the name, I had already written the book and I knew I wanted it to be called Just Be You. But when I looked up Just Be You book, I got like 3 or 4 different books that had all come out recently, and one of them was like a gay romance novel. And I was like, well, if I'm trying to sell a children's book, I don't really need to have any kind of confusion in the marketplace about which book is mine. So that's why I added the word always, and now I'm good. So even something as simple as just adding a word will help you to will keep you from having that issue. But always Google the stuff that you want to do. All right. Guess not. I'll talk to y'all later. Peace.